This is Koji again from Celestial Rhythms, and this is the third part of this series about the solar eclipse of December 14, 2020. That's the eclipse for Washington, D.C. here. Now, I would like to tell you something about this eclipse family's main theme. So we go back to the first eclipse of that series, which dates back to 1624. And as you see, on that day, the moon's shadow the first time touched Earth close to the pole. And every 18 years still there has been another eclipse of that series, and that will be going on for 13 centuries up to the end of this millennium. We're now about 400 years in. Since 1768 the eclipses have been total ones, and there will be total till 2500 and something. After that there will be partial eclipses, and before that as well. So we're in the center phase, about 400 years in, and the main theme of this eclipse family is new creation, pioneering, going into the unknown literally, and being well equipped with that sense of how to deal with new energies, with the south node in that sign. Difficulties at the beginning is emphasized here. That's the hexagram 3, which rules that part of the zodiac. Just showing you here quickly the overlay of the zodiac. So that segment of the zodiac between 26 something and 2 degrees Taurus, hexagram 3, difficulties at the beginning. So that's the main theme, and you see that eclipse was, when it's was at its maximum, it was high up in the sky, very close to midheaven, over the American capital, with 0 degrees Taurus rising. 0 degrees Taurus is a powerful degree, which also is linked with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction just a few days away, and that conjunction will be exact. This degree actually will be rising in Washington, D.C. So there is some theme here going on. It's a transition period. Hexagram 3 in the I Ching is the first in the sequence where the two elements interact, the creative number 1 and the receptive number 2. It's that moment when something new has started, and naturally at first one runs into initial problems and challenges which were not foreseen. That's kind of the energy of difficulty at the beginning. What is really standing out in this chart further is this big stellium in the first house, close to the ascendant Saturn rising, closely joined by Uranus. Uranus, actually, I looked it up, just less than 2 days later stations 2 to go back to forward motion. So Saturn is just starting to fully catch up on Uranus here, in a bigger way said. Saturn is the faster of the two planets, so Saturn will very soon make an exact conjunction within days or so after that moment. So it is kind of the very end of a cycle we are seeing here between Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn representing the old, Uranus the new. And as Uranus is so close from stationing, that energy is particularly enlarged, because the slower a planet moves, the more impact it leaves. That's kind of the rule of thumb. Planets around their station are more clearly visible and stronger in their manifestation. In Leo, the sign of performance, of taking the courage and doing something, being bold and seen, ready to get on stage and to shine. And all these planets in Leo, that's a beautiful energy of inner drive to complete, to create, in that nice trine with Juno in Sag. And as you recall, that degree we have in the midheaven of, let me think, which chart was that? That was this one here, I guess, and I'm guessing here, right, the midpoint chart. This one, no, it was not this one. This one. Right, okay, here we go. The one of this present eclipse in Washington, D.C. has 11 degrees Sagittarius at midheaven, and yes, that was the point I wanted to make. Sometimes I forget, because there's so many things going on here in different charts. So anyway, that Juno in that base chart for this evolutionary kind of theme, which is spread out over 13 centuries, this Juno is right at midheaven in this present eclipse. It is really put into the limelight. Juno again is partnership, working together, supporting one another, the understanding that it needs many, many pillars to hold up a big roof, a big building, a big edifice, a big structure, a big nation. So it's that coming together of the people, which really is the event we see happening, creating something new, all in these fire signs, with Mercury in the first degree of Aries. It's the idea which is at the beginning of every creation, of every new creation. First it's the idea. That's why Mercury in Aries is so powerful. It's a hierarchical ruler, according to Alice Bailey, in Aries. It sets the stage for a new creation to begin. It's the divine idea which starts every new venture. Venus in a tight conjunction with Chiron, something that has to be healed is shown here. That's where presently Neptune is, and that is opposing the American nation's black moon, the American nation's nation, a shadow in that sense to say, which has to be looked at and dissolved right now. So this whole series is fueling that transformation, and that has been going on in stages since, as I say, 400 years, and we are now coming to that critical point where everything seems to come together in the right way. And I show you here the overlay of the two charts. Inside you see the one for December 14, and outside you see the root chart of this series. as I mentioned before, Juno here is favored up in the center of consciousness. Then what further I wanted to point out here is Pallas, right, at the ascendant together with Sedna. And this would mean that ability to see patterns in the unknown, in the strange, the weird, Sedna, the alien. It's bringing all that into the focus. Now, what is particularly interesting is if we do the midpoint chart between the two, which shows how these two interact. Midpoints are always the kind of the balance point, shows how this particular eclipse is in harmony and resonance with the bigger theme of this 1300-year cycle. And that brings us to August 17, 1822. You see, this is really an interesting side thought here, that the past is always still alive. Nothing ever dies. Everything is still available at the vibratory level. And as we know, I mean, it's been pretty proven by now that we can travel in time, that any time can be still accessed in full. Even if we just have a strong memory of something which happened in our lives, we literally travel back to that moment and are again in that energy, experience everything as if it were right now. So this whole transparency of time is very interesting in astrology, how everything always roots back to an earlier place, a nodal point, like in a very simple way, naturally, our birth charts. We are that many years old, but still that moment when we first were an independent being, breathing all by ourselves, unsupported from any other life form, a true individual coming into this world. That moment still counts as the base and resonates with what is now. And midpoint energies are the hinge. It's kind of where the two meet. So this chart has 9 degrees Gemini rising. That is where the American nation's Uranus is. Again, Uranus. You probably hear there's a repeating theme here. In that chart also we have a Uranus-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn. Uranus and Neptune are spiritual planets, or ideal, I would call it dimensions of ideals, of it's kind of approaches to life in a bigger way. And it is interesting that Neptune has been connected to the left of the spectrum, the whole idea of communism and sharing everything, and Uranus has been definitely in the category of capitalism and of venture and of going to new dimensions and new places, versus Neptune, which is more kind of just complacently coming along. So it is kind of the two branches, if you want, of left and right in politics are also represented by Neptune and Uranus, and that conjunction is very auspicious in that place here, as it shows a true merging and meeting of the two sides, coming together in a new way, blending their ideas, because I mean it's a great reset in the Neptunian world, and it is the great awakening in the Uranian world, and those two eventually will meet and match. It will be a union of those two concepts, as finally, if we get into free energy and into the abundance we have on this planet, then yes, then there will be maybe for the first time true communism, where everything is possible and everyone supports everyone else. But this has to be achieved first. We have to go for our power and our independence, and this is kind of then a side effect. So we have to go first through the Uranian approach to achieve the Neptunian, if you want. Furthermore, North Node Eris, is that ever interesting? Eris and in Aquarius again, lots of air energy in this midpoint chart. Aquarius, Uranus, the ruler of, and we have again Pallas in Aquarius, as is now, and Eris is the energy of discord, of intentionally going into a struggle in search of a higher harmony. It is story of Eris, the goddess in the Greek mythology, throwing the golden apple of discord in the middle of the table round, and thus initiating the conflict into the open. Bring it to the open. Yes, bring it out. Don't hide it anymore. Show what the conflict is, and work it out. Go for the confrontation. Confrontation is a healthy process in Aries vision. Aries is presently squaring Pluto. That's kind of the big one of our present times. I'll show you here quickly. Here is Pluto, and here is Aries. And they're forming several square aspects between 2020 and 23, roughly. Pluto being the power, the worldly power structure, which is fully coming into the open, being visible, and Eris is questioning that power and challenging it, and kind of challenging it out of its reserves to expose itself, to get purified. And I guess there is a big purification going on here with Aries and Pluto. That's what I see happening. And only through bringing that disparity into the open and addressing it, and that's what Aries is doing, we will achieve that breakthrough and a higher understanding, and also resolving all the shortcomings. That's another one which is one of the goals, one of the targets we're getting to. So, and then on top of that, this Aries is in the midheaven, so it's really the central point here. With the South Node in Leo, lots of Leo energy here again. So we keep seeing the same energies showing up in different ways. Anyway, that is all I wanted to show you here, showing you the complexity of it all and how wonderfully everything comes together into this great opening into a new age. Just going back once more for a last moment to this chart of tomorrow morning, December 14, 11, 13, 28 in Washington, D.C. it is. So again, if you can find some time tomorrow at any time, but preferably around that hour, 11:14 or so, shortly after 11 a.m. in Washington, D.C., just take your time and sit for a few minutes, half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour ideally, let's say from 11 till 11:30, something in that range. That would be wonderful to feel it, to give it body, to give it focus, to give it consciousness, that powerful moment which is preceding the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in less than a week. It will be when the Sun here and the Moon, yes, meet at 23 something, so if in a week the Sun is at 0 degree Capricorn and the Moon will have traveled a quarter of the zodiac to the end of Pisces in a waxing half moon, a most potent lunar energy growing half moon. So that's just a little preview. So we are building momentum from tomorrow morning on, when the eclipse is happening, onto that moment when Jupiter and Saturn will be dead on with each other in 7 days. So I would invite you to really feel that build up and that complex shift and change. As I mentioned, first tomorrow the eclipse, then 3 days later Saturn will change signs, entering Aquarius. On the 18th then the Sun will line up with the galactic center. On the 19th Mercury will be aligned with the galactic center, and also on the 19th Jupiter will enter Aquarius. And then finally on the 21st, yes, then there is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, that big age opening, new energy being rooted, being seeded. Don't expect something magical to happen. If it happens, wonderful. I wouldn't bet on that, but it is happening on a deep underground level, a readjustment, a realignment of inner energies. And if you are in that knowing that everything will naturally come to a wonderful, wonderful place, then you're helping, you're holding the energy, you're helping all these many people who are living in confusion and under deception, under the spell of all that wrong information, which is like a dark cloud over people's minds. If we see that and just recognize it what it is, and we hold that positive and good energy, and now everybody can see one another where they're at. It's so easy, way easier at least than it has been ever. So it is important to see this polarization and know that this is a first step in integration. First it has to be sorted out, and then it can be reassembled. Thank you for listening, and talk to you soon. Love you all. Bye bye.